Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be providing a book review for the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series, Valor, by John Gwynne. I have already read the first book in the series earlier last year, which was Malice. I picked it up after seeing some people on BookTube talk about it and also seeing it in a used bookstore. And so I thought, it's an epic fantasy series, I'll try it out. I thought I was going for something different when really it was a lot of the same stuff, which I really liked. It's a very, when you read the series, it'll feel familiar to you, but I still think that's a good thing about it. Valor continues the story started in Malice. It's a part of a 4-book series, this one in the middle books. But this book dramatically expands the cast in the similar fashion that books like the Wheel of Time series or Game of Thrones dramatically expand the cast of characters in book 2. This book did the same thing. Although, unfortunately, even though I tried, the characters that are new in this book really weren't interesting to me, but the characters that were returning really were. This book took a while to get started. It was until about page 200 that I really started feeling for the characters. I was remembering everything that happened. It'd been almost a year. It'd been about 10 months since I've read the last book. So, almost 11 months actually. So, when I went to read this, there's not really much at the beginning of the book to remind you, and he doesn't do what people like Robert Jordan would do and just basically re-explain everything that would happen and that had happened in the last book in the current book. And so I spent a lot of that book playing catch up. But once I got to about the page 200 mark, this became an awesome book. I really enjoyed a few of the storylines. Not all of the storylines, but a few of them. My favorite character in this series is Corbin, and I think that from the outset, he was the character that was naturally going to be my favorite character. For example, my favorite character in the Wheel of Time series is Rand. I really like, the character he's the good guy, he's the hero, he's the main protagonist, he's doing the good guy stuff. That's Corbin, and I really enjoy him. And his whole plotline in this book was brilliant. I loved everything about it. I was hooked from beginning to the end, and I can't wait to read more about his plotline. I also really like a lot of the villains in this book. Usually books have quite a lot of heroes and only a few villains, or a lot of heroes and a lot of villains. This book had some heroes, but it had a lot of villains, and the villains are quite interesting. You have Nethair, who is a really interesting character that's being duped by another power. You have Rin, who is not a point of view character, Queen Rin, but she is despicably evil and wonderful to read about. You also have characters like, I can't explain that because that's a spoiler. There are other evil characters in this book who are really cool to read about. And then you have the people working for the villains. You have people like Veratus. I think in my mind I read it as Veratus, but it doesn't matter. Veratus, he is one character that you feel for because he's a genuinely good guy. Like if he and Corbin grew up together, they would have become friends. They would have been good pals, I think. But unfortunately, they're on opposite sides of the conflicts in this book series, and so naturally they're enemies. But he was interesting to read about because you feel like, oh man, if you had only been in the other army, and it makes both sides seem compelling, even though I believe that the author is setting up that one side is good and one side is evil. Another part of this character that I thought was interesting at some points was Nethair's mother, Fidel, I think it is, and she has quite an interesting turn of events in this book, and her story, she had a beginning, middle, and end in this book, and I thought the author did a great job with her. Unfortunately, the other characters, Uthas and Tukal, and who was that other one, Makwin, none of them held my attention. And it was really unfortunate because there were some epic moments in some of their scenes. There was some great castle moments, some great rescue, some great battle. There was just some great moments, but I wasn't racing to those chapters. I would turn the page because there's like 120 chapters in this book. And so as a result, it's flipping back and forth between the characters, and each chapter is a different character's perspective, and every 50 or so pages it circles back. And whenever I'd get to Uthas's chapter or Makwin's chapter, I felt it was a chore. But when I would get to Corbin's chapter, I felt rewarded, I felt excited. And when I got to Veratus, I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And when I got to Cywin, I thought Cywin was utilized really well in this book. She had some really funny lines that I really liked. And so it just felt very whiplashy of, oh, I love this part, oh, I hate this part. And so that was a kind of weak part of the book. So even though the high points in this book are truly high, the Corbin storyline, I cannot emphasize how much I love that storyline, but the rest of the book just drags it down and keeps it from having that high point. I think personally that Malice was a better book just from, I don't even remember all that much of what happened in Malice, but it was more tighter. It did not have the expansive characters. It did not have all of the extra world building that was necessary. It was just a very simple book following, I think, about 4 or 5 main characters. Whereas Valor feels like you're following about 10 different plot lines. It feels so much bigger. The page count is roughly the same, but it feels like a much more epic storyline. And it just feels like he was trying to tackle too much. Especially that this is only a 4-book series. If this was going to be more like a 7, 8, 9-book series, I'd feel more okay with having this many characters. Being only 4 books, I feel like I'm not going to get enough time with some of these characters to really feel about them, or I will only start to feel about them at the end. But that isn't entirely about this book. So overall, I enjoyed this book. High points were really good, low points were meh. So my personal rating is a 7 out of 10. A good book, but not as strong as it could have been. I really enjoyed it. And so if you've read this book or this series, let me know down in the comments below what you thought. Did you like this book more than book 1? Did you like books 3 or 4 more? Let me know your thoughts. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel so that you can see other videos. I do reviews on fantasy, sci-fi, and tie-in fiction all the time. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.